The question floated in the cool morning air like a fragile piece of glass. "Mama, are we bad people?" It was whispered so softly that it almost dissolved into the wind, but Marcus heard it. And in that instant, something inside him cracked wide open. He had been walking through the park, thinking about nothing more than the heavy fog out. His own problems, when he saw the little girl sitting beside her mother on a bench. The mother stared ahead with tired eyes, fingers trembling as she held her daughter's hand. The girl looked up at her with a face caught between innocence and worry, repeating the question that hit Marcus deeper than he expected. It wasn't simply a child's doubt, it was a wound, shaped by fear and shame far too big for someone her age. And as he stopped in his tracks, watching them from a few steps away, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. If you believe kindness, second chances, and human compassion still matter in our world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. This story deserves to reach hearts that need healing. Marcus had always been the man who minded his own business, the kind who walked through life with his head down, carrying regrets like stones in his pockets. He worked long hours as a warehouse supervisor in Ohio, often missing family dinners, birthdays, and even the simple joy of quiet evenings. His marriage had ended 2 years earlier, not because of a dramatic fight, but because of small hurts left unattended. His 12-year-old son, Noah, lived with his ex-wife, and Marcus saw him only on weekends now. Most days, he convinced himself that he didn't deserve more. But that whisper from the little girl shattered the numbness he had built around his heart. He learned their names only later, but in that moment he simply watched. The mother, Claire, looked mid-30s, her hair tied neatly, even though her clothes looked worn from too many washes. The girl, Sophie, could not have been older than 6, with a purple sweater that was slightly too big for her small frame. They sat close together, yet there was a heaviness around them, the kind that comes from life pressing too hard on the same bruise. Marcus walked past them at first. He didn't want to intrude. But as he passed, he heard Claire's voice, quiet and breaking, saying something like, "No, sweetheart, we are not bad. We just made mistakes." The girl nodded, but the doubt didn't leave her eyes. Marcus felt a pull he couldn't ignore. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. He knew what it felt like to fail the people you loved. He knew what it meant to believe you weren't good enough. And he knew what guilt could do to a child. He found himself turning back. Later, he would realize that was the moment everything changed. Claire and Sophie had moved to the small town only a week earlier. A neighbor had called the police after hearing shouting from their apartment the night before. It turned out Claire's ex-partner Sophie's father had shown up drunk and furious, accusing her of leaving him, of breaking their family. He didn't hit them, but he broke dishes, punched a wall, and terrified Sophie so badly that she had nightmares the entire night. Claire managed to get him out, but she knew that fear stays even after the danger leaves. That morning, she brought Sophie to the park to breathe, to calm down, to try and pretend life was stable, even though she felt like she was stitching her sanity together with shaking hands. Marcus approached gently. He asked if everything was okay, not in the curious manner of someone wanting information, but in the genuine, quiet tone of someone who cared. Claire hesitated at first. She wasn't used to strangers showing kindness, but something about Marcus's expression made her trust him enough to nod and say they were just having a hard morning. He didn't push. Instead, he sat on the bench across from them, giving space while staying present. Sophie looked at him cautiously, her small hands clasped in her lap. Marcus smiled in a way that softened the tension around her eyes. Over the next weeks, Marcus found himself stopping by the park more often. Sometimes he saw them, sometimes he didn't, but on the days he did, he would bring little things, not gifts, just small gestures. A handful of birdseed because Sophie liked feeding the sparrows. A new thermos of hot chocolate on a cold morning. A pack of crayons he happened to find on sale. He was careful, always respectful, always aware of boundaries. Claire appreciated his gentleness. She was navigating court meetings, restraining orders, and the emotional aftermath of leaving a toxic relationship. Her biggest fear wasn't her exit, was what the experience was doing to Sophie. She wanted her daughter to believe in goodness again. Marcus helped in ways he didn't even realize. When Sophie laughed at one of his silly jokes, Claire saw a spark returning to her daughter's eyes. When he taught Sophie how to skip stones at the pond, the little girl forgot her fear for a moment. And when Marcus openly talked about mistakes he had made in his own life, without shame, without excuses, Claire felt something shift inside her. He wasn't pretending to be perfect. He was simply trying to be better. That gave her hope. But the real turning point came on a cold Saturday morning. Sophie had been quiet all week. She barely spoke at school, and Claire received a call from her teacher saying Sophie seemed withdrawn. That morning, when Claire asked what was wrong, Sophie whispered, "Maybe Daddy was right. Maybe we're the reason he got mad. Maybe we make people upset." When Marcus met them at the park, he noticed Sophie's red eyes immediately. Claire looked exhausted, as though she had cried too. And without warning, Claire broke down. Right there in front of Marcus, she apologized, saying she felt like she was failing as a mother, that she did know how to protect her daughter from the hurt they had lived through. She said she was scared Sophie would grow up believing kindness was something other people deserved, but not her. Marcus's heart twisted. He knelt in front of Sophie, making sure she could see his eyes clearly. He didn't lecture or preach. He spoke in a steady, warm voice, telling her that people sometimes get angry because of their own storms inside, not because of anything a child does. He said that good people sometimes feel broken, but that doesn't make them bad. He said that her mother was strong, even if she didn't feel like it. And he told Sophie that he had felt the same way once, but someone helped him see the truth. Claire listened, tears rolling silently down her face. Sophie reached out, touching Marcus's sleeve, and asked in a trembling voice, "So we're not bad people?" Marcus shook his head gently, saying, "No, sweetheart. You're good, you're brave, and you're loved. That's what matters." Something healed in Claire that day. A small piece, but enough to breathe again. Weeks later, Claire invited Marcus to dinner, just a simple home-cooked meal, humble and warm. It was the first time Marcus had shared a dinner table with someone other than himself in 2 years. As Sophie chatted excitedly about school projects and new friends, Marcus realized he didn't feel like an outsider with them. He felt needed. And in a quiet, hopeful way, he felt like maybe he deserved connection too. In time, their lives intertwined gently and naturally. Claire found a steadier job. Sophie started therapy and began thriving again. Marcus rebuilt his bond with his son Noah, learning that healing didn't have to be perfect, it just had to be honest. And somewhere in the middle of all that, something tender grew between Marcus and Claire. Not rushed, not forced, just two wounded souls learning to trust the warmth life still had to offer. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people who need hope. Before the ending, please comment below. Kindness changes everything. In the end, Marcus often thought back to that first morning in the park, to Sophie's trembling voice asking if they were bad people, to Claire's quiet despair, to the moment he decided to turn around instead of walking away. One choice, one act of compassion, one moment of listening. It didn't just change their lives, it saved his too.